Hi everyone, my name is Anaïs. You've already met me on Slack or via email. I'm your community manager for the scholarship program, both for the fast track and for the beginner's path in Android. Hi everyone, my name is Anaïs. You've already met me on Really happy to have you here for this webinar. Tonight we're going to talk with the women that are behind Android at Udacity. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the schedule that we're going to follow. And then I'll let them take over the show. So basically, we're just going to start with a quick intro that will tell you more about their story and how they got into programming. Then they will answer some of the selected questions that we got from the form that you guys filled in. So we had some really great questions. Thank you so much for that. There's a lot of topics that we want to touch base on, so we'll try to cover as much as possible. And then from 10 past 8 on, they will answer the questions that you guys can ask on YouTube. So we'll start with selected questions until 10 past 8, and then we'll move to Ask Me Anything, and you can just ask them questions via the YouTube live chat. After this, I will close the webinar, and I will just remind you guys a couple of things about the logistics of the program and how it's all going to work at the end. Hope you enjoy.
Cool.
Hi, students.
Hi. We should say who we are.
So my name is Jenny Kim Eldon. I am the product lead for the Android Nano Degree program here at Udacity. And I think that's all for now. I'll get a little bit more into it about myself after we start answering questions.
Cool. My name is Lyla Fujiwara. I've been on the Android team for 2.5 years, and I've made a bunch of courses. If you guys are probably mostly in the Android beginners course, so you probably see my face a little bit in there. I'm also part of the more advanced Android Nano degree, and I've worked on some courses there as well. And I'm excited to talk with you all today.
Nice. Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Lin. So I actually started out as a course manager working on a lot of our Android and Java courses, and now currently course developer, primarily building out, working with the team here, building out Android basics and more advanced Android courses for y'all.
So great, let's get started with our questions. So the first question we got, which is from Anna Wazileweska, I think, from Edinburgh. And I apologize, Anna, if I mispronounced your name, which I probably did. The question is, how did you start working as developers? Do you have IT degrees? So I guess I'll get started with this. I do not have a technical degree. I actually graduated with a bachelor's in history and a master's in public affairs from the university here in the States. And I got started as a developer working at Udacity, actually, as a project manager. I started working here about 4 years ago, and about 2 years in, I got sort of bored, basically, with being a project manager, and I got frustrated by not being able to fix problems and bugs and issues that I was seeing with the product. So I decided I was going to really invest in my education to teach myself how to program and learn how to become a developer so that I could fix those problems. So Udacity totally supported me through doing that. I went to a 3-month boot camp, came back to Udacity as a front-end or full-stack developer for web. I'm actually not an Android developer, I have to admit to you guys. I'm in charge of the Android product, but my background is actually in web. And so I came back and joined the engineering team. And I would say the main sort of thread of how I became a developer is just sort of like this crazy obsessive motivation and visualization of what my end goal was going to be, what my job was going to look like, where I would work, where I would sit, what my little setup, down very finite details. And that really kept me going as I learned to code, because it can be really frustrating. And I certainly empathize with a lot of you who are going through the same process. And I was also lucky enough to be here at Udacity, surrounded by people like Lyla and Jessica and others who are more advanced developers and were able to give me a hand when I was stuck. So we're hoping that the Nano Degree program kind of emulates that experience where you have support from people who have experience to kind of get you unstuck so you can continue on your journey.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to be participating in stuff like this, because this is kind of being part of the community, so that's cool. Let's see. So I do have a computer science degree. I graduated with a computer science degree, but I actually, after graduating with a computer science degree, kind of went off the beaten track. I joined a program called the Peace Corps, which is a US government program, and then taught for 2 years. I was teaching computer science, but it was at a very like basic level. And then after that, I came back to the States and ended up getting the job at Udacity primarily because during my undergraduate education, I had the teaching background, and then I also had made a Android app while I was at college, like with a group of friends, and it was a sort of free form, design your own project type of thing, which I don't think is very different from something that like any of you could be doing. And I think it was really that component of having like an Android app out on the Play Store that mixed with the teaching that got me into the position that I am today. So I'm what's called a course developer. So I'd say it's like a 50% engineer, 50% teacher, because obviously you've seen me like instructing some of the classes, but there's also all the sample code that you touched. Like I've written a lot of it. So I would say that that's kind of my career. And at Udacity, I've learned like probably a lot of I picked up a lot of stuff in the job. I think that's another thing that you'll hear a lot is that. While people definitely learn a lot while they're in college, like the primary working skills that they get, like either self-taught or on the job. So I came with like 4-year-old Android experience. Like Android changes so fast. Like my experience was basically nothing, but I proved that I knew how to program, and then I've been having a kick-ass time for the last like 2.5 years. So.
Yeah.
I totally resonate with the learning on the job situation. So my background was in bioengineering, so I studied that through undergrad, and then after I graduated, I ended up working at a medical software company, so working with hospitals and their healthcare software. But in the back of my mind, I love the creative aspect of like the engineering. Like what I loved about engineering was to be able to create things that impacted people's lives, and I missed that immediate creation part of it. So my free time ended up taking this course on this online platform called Udacity. At that time, nobody knew what that was. My parents were like, "What are you doing?" So ended up falling in love with it, and the idea of like being able to continue to learn even outside of the walls of like, and so kept exploring that realm. And in the back of my mind, felt like that was the next calling I wanted to jump on board with. So decided to take a job with the company at that time, and initially started out, as I said, as a course manager.
Course manager.
Yeah. So course manager, kind of, you probably interacted with Anais before. So the students, once the course is out, the student experience with it. So at that time, our student population was a lot smaller, so we had more, I guess, one-on-one, high touch exposure with students, getting to work with the content after it was created, after course developers worked on it, seeing how to both continue the student experience, make it better, like see what issues students were having, and then like feeding it back on the course developers.
So course managers were kind of this hybrid QA and student support role.
Yeah, perfect. So at that time, I only had Java knowledge because I learned some Java back in college, and then a little dabbled it in high school, but I hadn't really touched it too much. But I felt I really enjoyed working in that language. And at the time, we released the first Android course with Google, and was asked by one of our team leads, like, "Hey, would you like to, take care of this course with our students?" So I was like, "Sure, I'd love to." Like kind of what you were saying about learning on the job, just finding something that like a new opportunity and just really latching onto it, and like really putting in those hours at that time with both people who were experienced with it on the team as well as folks who were coming around at the same time as me, kind of same experience level, just like putting in hours, in the evenings trying to learn that stuff. And then from there, it's just, the journey's continued and eventually switched over to course development, kind of continuing to grow my experience in that platform. And yes, the more I get to work with people, the more I get to learn opportunities come up.
This is actually a really good transition to the next question from Eleanor Moritz in Berlin, who's asking for tips and tricks for transitioning into a developer career coming from a non-technical background. I think, Eleanor, you and all of our other students are hearing something similar from our answers of becoming a programmer doesn't mean, or developer doesn't mean, it doesn't equate to like there's some sort of set fixed amount of knowledge, Java, Android, JavaScript, whatever your language is, where you just like open it up and you like eat everything and then you're done. You're like, I've eaten everything, it's done, there's no more to be eaten, I am a developer. Instead, what the and now we're running this metaphor, which
You have to keep eating.
Exactly.
Otherwise you'll starve.
I'm kind of regretting that metaphor now. The point of it is just that it's not the skill of consuming everything. It's a skill of knowing how to consume and of constantly consuming. Or I guess let me just throw that metaphor away because it obviously is flawed. But I think like for us, the skill is learning how to learn and to be open to opportunities and to always be curious, to be like believing so deeply that we can figure it out, that everything is discoverable, that there's an answer, that there's no magic where it's like, I'm too stupid, I can't figure it out. There's like a magical person over there who's a developer and they have a magic wand or a hat or something and they can figure it out. Like that doesn't exist. Like for us, we all believe to our core that we can do it and that, you know, maybe we can't do it today, but we can find help. We have ways to search for help. We have people to ask. And that's what I hope that the Nano Degree empowers you all with, is this community and this structure where you gain that confidence in yourself, whether it's like a really simple bug fix or trying to pass a quiz and you try 18 times and you finally figure out why your code failed 17 times. All of that is just part of like building this mentality of like, I can do this and I can continue to, sorry about that, continue eating like I know how to do this, because Android is always going to be updated. There's going to be, you know, language advancements all the time. There's going to be new tech, new libraries, so many new things just to learn and consume, that having that appetite to learn, oh, this actually was a good metaphor. Having the appetite is really more important than just the fact of like what you've already learned.
Mm-hmm. I will say that one of the things that like I was thinking about as both of you were talking is that like network is really important, and then I think that's something that I don't know, if you can try to reach out and see like who's already there and like who you can lean on that, you know, might be able to help you. And I think like when you're learning alone, you know, you might not feel comfortable asking questions or, you know, feeling vulnerable in that way. And that it's important to like know how to ask for help. And even in the job search, if there are like, yeah, this wasn't true with Udacity. So I would say there's like two ways that I've gotten jobs. One of them is that I have been able to like network a bit and I've used my network connections. And I think that like that's something that, I don't know, you just shouldn't undersell like the importance of trying to do that if you can, because that will get you in the door. And I think the other thing is just being able to demonstrate like a really clear sense of passion and to be able to rework the experiences that you've had before into like something that is, if you can, something that like relates to what the job is. And there's, I don't know, because like you didn't talk about how you came from the State Department, but I'm sure like part of that like worked into your sales pitch for getting into Udacity, and then like, right. And it was kind of similar with me. Like I'm pretty sure that the reason that I got to the door from Udacity was a very impassioned like cover letter that I wrote about my experience in Peace Corps, which is not necessarily directly related to tech. I mean, it was a bit more related to teaching, but I do think like if you're coming from a non-traditional background, there is a little bit of work to think about how you could take, just be like proud of those experiences and the diversity that you bring to a team, and figure out how, you know, take a little bit of time to figure out how to frame those experiences so that they still have like context of what you're trying to do, if you can.
And I think my background was public service and government, which doesn't seem necessarily like a perfect analog for working in tech. But I think coming in with this mentality of like, I have something very concrete to offer and my background is unique. And diversity isn't just, you know, like gender, ethnicity, about the sort of skills and perspectives that you have that no one else has. And I think being able to elucidate those and to communicate those really crisply to an employer can be tremendously helpful in getting your foot in the door if you have a non-traditional background. Because I mean, you probably don't really want to work at a place that only wants to hire the exact same person over and over and over again. And you're not that person, especially if you're not that person. So I think, you know, it might be hard to hear, but you are going to have to pitch yourself until you find the right fit. And the right fit is a company that's going to listen to you and be receptive to that pitch after you've sort of honed it and practiced it. There's actually a career change sort of webcast that I did with an engineer or former engineer of ours, Lindsay Smith. So I can share that link with you later, and maybe you could share it with the students because we'll go more in depth in there about sort of career tips and job change tips and networking tips.
Mm-hmm. I guess one other thing I will say is like the last 2 times that I've done job transitions, I picked up books, and they're like these career books, and they're kind of hokey, but they do force you to. Or one of the things I like is that they have exercises in them, and they force you to go through those exercises. And I think that having a structure to that and making yourself go through some of those things and really think about, you know, the core things that matter to you, not only will those help you like kind of pick the companies and things that you want to apply for, it'll also help, you'll have some practice, like, I guess being passionate about something because you will have written down what you're passionate about and like have practiced that before. And I wanted to second, like, I don't know. I mean, you'll find some places that like on the outside maybe seem like they're really cool, but if you don't get a good vibe for them or they don't seem like they respect, you know, you or where you're coming from, like you don't, I don't know. You will go into some situations where it's like, you might go into it thinking it's a really great place, but then like, if you know, really what you're looking for, the environment that you're looking for, like, I think it's also okay to be picky, to be like, you know, this isn't the place for me.
Okay, so Jessica, I have one for you. Well, you can start. What are some of the main concepts an Android developer should be comfortable with before being ready to apply for work in Android development? It's from Tamsin Leverage in the UK.
So in terms of like technical components?
Yeah, let me speak up a little bit.
Okay. So I would say definitely have a strong Java background. So because like we're saying Android constantly changes, the foundational part of it, just being able to be comfortable working in that language. So no matter like what's changing on the surface, you have that background work to work off of. In terms of, I would say in terms understanding how various like larger infrastructure of how things work together. So the Android framework, you have this single device, but how is it connected to like other devices as well as like cloud components or other services that are running. So having that almost theoretical knowledge of how these components all work together will help frame better when you're writing your code, creating, because your app isn't going to just be like a singular little app. It's going to have to interact with a variety of other things, lifecycle things.
Yeah, I did an interview question, which was like basically like an Android architecture question, which took, all of those, all the like 4 core components that you learn about content provider services and like, actually talking about how they all come together to make an app. So, the question was like a single sentence, like, how do you make this type of app? And then I had to be able to sketch out, kind of all the things that were together. The other stuff, I would say that, so we're working on content related to this, but like a general sense of what's going on in like what libraries developers are using and some experience with them and the ability to kind of like create a rapport with whoever you're talking to about like, oh yeah, I just heard about that cool new thing. And like, I experimented with it in a project. I would say, again, like we're making some material on that, so you'll be able to see that like when it comes out. And then like right now, if you are currently in a job hunt, to definitely make sure to kind of like look and do some research about that. More things. I feel like, I don't know, do you have anything?
I just want to say like mindset.
That's a pretty huge one too.
Like be willing to ask questions and then also just be able to be willing to look for answers online and like know how to search, know who to ask for, be comfortable that you will be constantly asking questions.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. I know we keep like saying that, like, repeating probably like 2-3 times, but especially for this audience, which as I understand it is the Android Basics Standard degree and some Android Associate Android Fast Track students. Like, it can't be said enough how important mindset and having a growth mindset, how important that is to your development as in your career in general at this stage. So, so like in addition to like these concrete things about Java concepts and the Android lifecycle, there are like very deeply personal, personal issues, just like mindset and belief and persistence and grit and all of that, which are just as important.
I'm trying to think. So I have a couple of more like micro things. So like I definitely questions about services and like asynchronous stuff. Questions about like content providers, how to manage data, that sort of thing. I got questions about like sort of performance related and how you might use the Android tools to find like memory issues.
That's a good one. Learning the tools.
Yeah.
It's like that's not a trivial thing, and it can be really, really powerful for you later.
I think you'll generally have like two different styles of interview. One is like the standard, coding on a whiteboard type interview. So they'll take you in and they'll give you a series of basic like, they'll give you a series of like sort of data structures and algorithms based coding questions. There are a lot of books out there, and we can like provide resources to like kind of help skill on those things. And then you'll get a question that's maybe not so Android specific. You'll actually have to go up to a whiteboard or on a computer and like type out an answer to a question like this. So that's definitely, at least for interview prep, like something you should be doing. Another style is sometimes you'll get like take home work, or you'll be asked to pair program with somebody. So in that case, like, I don't know, like the more projects and things that you make, I think probably the better. And something that's like oft overlooked is your ability, like during an interview, you're going to need the ability to be both coding and communicating what's going on in your head while you're coding. So the more experience that you could get, either it's kind of like teaching, like going, if you're doing a whiteboarding problem, like having a friend there and explaining to them what you're actually doing on the whiteboard, or if you do have the ability to meet up with somebody else who's sort of learning Android and be like, either pair programming, which is when you have two people who might attach two different keyboards to the same computer and are kind of like switching back and forth on programming, or just other experiences where you're like sitting next to someone and able to like talk through technical stuff. Like I think that is a big skill, and it will help you.
And if you're doing this alone and you can't pair up with one of your classmates, you could also record yourself doing a whiteboard on just like set up your camera over your piece of paper. And just write down. Like I've done programming interviews, like prep interviews with friends where you just do Google Hangouts and then they just kind of show me what they're doing on a piece of paper. The part about learning to think out loud is key, because if you're not saying something, the interview is just, like I've been in interviews where the person might have been brilliant, but I have no idea what they're thinking, what their process is. So being comfortable, and also just showing like your ability to think through a problem calmly and rationally, and having steps. And having assumptions you're making. We do have interview prep. We can get more into detail that you can look at. I can send a link to Anais to share with you guys that we've made for our career component in the Nano degree that goes over a lot of great whiteboarding tips.
I have one more thing. I know we probably want to get to the next question. I think having opinions about things is really good. If you can go in there and there's some technical subject and you have a strong opinion, like you might even be asked, like, do you like this library? Why or why not? Or like, here's this situation, like what would you choose to use? Why? And a lot of times with Android, there might be a few different libraries or frameworks that you can take advantage of. And they ask those questions so that they see the depth of your ability to make kind of architectural decisions about apps and whether you can actually like pick the right thing out of an array of choices.
And they're often not looking for like a right answer. They're looking for your reasoning behind why you chose option A over option B.
Yeah. And I think making apps is probably the best way to. Because you'll be able to be like, I choose this because in this last app I did it this way. Man, like was that painful to deal with? Or like whatever,
All right, so for the next question from Daria Kalashnikova, get hungry. After the lessons, I feel that my process in working with XML is becoming better every day, and I'm becoming more confident while dealing with it. That's awesome. I really want to feel the same confidence about Java. Yes, me too. So I'm wondering, do you have any advice from your own experience? What is the right way to improve the learning and effectiveness in my Java skills?
Well, I guess I'll say it. So we do have one Java class out right now, which I highly suggest if you are like in the beginner Android track, Android basics track, you should go and take the Java course. And I think that we are also potentially producing more Java content.
We are.
Yeah. So that's definitely, as to the last question, like you should have a very strong background with Java stuff. I'm trying to think of other resources that, let's say Khan Academy or just like other
right.
Other platforms.
Coursera probably has. Coursera edX probably has some Java. So we're planning a 3-course series, knock on wood, and the first course is out for the beginners. It's out now on our site for free. And then the next course will be in object-oriented Java, so that will be coming out soon. in the next few months. Not exactly sure when yet, but it's on the roadmap. But in the meantime, if you just can't wait, if you've burned through the beginner's course and want more, I would check out Khan, I check out Coursera and edX. I don't know exactly what courses are offered right now, but I know that each of those providers has Java in the curriculum.
I mean, we could also probably, we could try to see if we can come up with like those resources or stuff to reference, because definitely like it's important. Like it's, and I think like the object-oriented part is like having taught a lot of like intro Java classes, like that's something that students struggle with, so we can try to find some stuff about that.
Okay. We have a question from Marina Druga from Greece. Exciting. And she wants to know what it's like being a woman working as an Android developer. How did you start programming, and did you face any racial, I'm assuming she means kind of any like prejudice in your job, for example, like being paid less than men? And the reason I'm asking is the recent debate at the European Commission when Janusz Korwin-Mikke said, women must earn less as they're weaker and less intelligent, quote, unquote. What is your opinion about that? I was very excited about this question because I have an opinion about that. So I think, I mean, it should go without saying because we're in 2017 now, but we are where we are. So representative at the European Commission is wrong and is sort of just, when I saw that, I was like, is that a joke? Like, is this from 100 years ago or like what's happening? So I think to me it was so shocking just because it's so obviously wrong and like demonstrably false in every way. So I think, you know, I really like the representative from Spain. Her response to him was, I am here to fight to protect women against men like you. And I definitely feel that way on the job too, is that I'm here, I have a voice for women who don't have a voice. I think it's true for all of us. You know, that's just, as far as like our work environment, or for me personally as a developer, as a web developer at Udacity, I've never had that attitude presented to me, and if I did, that would be completely unacceptable, and everybody at the company would know that. So in that way, we're very fortunate, and it's sad that not every place is like that. And you know, we look around tech and seeing what's in the news, we know that not every company, even in the States, which has laws, you know, protecting equal rights for women, really honors the spirit of that. So I think for us, you know, we just do our best to do good work. And I personally have been very, very fortunate not to have struggled with things like pay inequality and prejudice and sexist views from coworkers. When dealing with things like, I know pay equality is a major issue, not just, you know, I'm sure in Greece, I'm sure in the EU, but in America too. And my technique has been to find out what other people make, what like the men make, to ask them, like, what do you make? And so that when I'm sort of going up for review for a promotion, or when I'm applying and negotiating, and always negotiate, oh my gosh, always negotiate your salary, always. It's like the best 15 minutes of your life. I mean, that's like the best way you could spend 15 minutes is to negotiate your salary. I have some information, some data, and that takes a certain kind of like boldness, I think, and something that especially women maybe aren't comfortable doing. But if you have data, it makes it much more likely that you're going to get your way, or that you're going to be able to make your case, because you can say, like, I know person X makes, or I know that people in this job make this amount of money or this range, and I believe I should be at this end of the range because, you know, here are the skills I have, or here are the products I delivered, or whatever it may be. So I think the more information you have, the better you are to combat inequality. Because we just need more sunlight and more openness about these matters at companies and across industries, so we can fight for ourselves. And that's true for everyone, not just for women.
One of the things that are crossing my mind is, I don't know, like, if you're going for your first job, even if you maybe don't, like, it might be harder to negotiate like the first time around, but I think, you know, but do negotiate. Even if it doesn't work out and you know, end up
worse is they say no.
Then like the next time you go into it, you're gonna have like you will have functioned as a programmer for, you know, a number of years, and like I think that I don't know, the sense that I get is like after you have a couple of years down your belt, it does like get quite a bit easier, and sort of the tables turn, where it's like less about you know, really having to hustle, and more like there will be people sending you emails kind of thing. If you so I mean, and then either when you first go out to apply for jobs or like after that, if you could get into a position where you apply to like a number of places at once, you get a couple of different options, like
Yes.
that is helpful, although not, always easy. I definitely have thoughts on this question.
Or an opinion on this statement.
opinion on this thing. Yeah. I read this, gosh, I can't be as like well worded as Jenny was, but I think that your perception about your ability to do something really influences like how well it turns out. And unfortunately, there are a lot of like societal influences, like this, idiot that says this, that like do have this kind of underlying message to women about like their acceptedness in technology and that sort of thing. And I, so I think Jenny mentioned like a growth mindset before. There's all this kind of stuff about confidence around something, or like, just being able to visualize yourself doing it that, again, really relates to outcomes. There was this article I read which sort of depressed me, which was like, I think it was just by lying to somebody and saying that they had done well. This was like an experiment. Just by lying to somebody and saying that they had done well on like a multiple choice test, like made them do better when they retook like a similar multiple choice test. And I don't know, I guess there has been a lot of like stuff out there about just like the impact of like perception of women being able or not able to do things, like actually impacting what happens. So I mean, I think part of the reason that we're all here is to be like, you can absolutely do it.
Yes,
like,
we believe in you.
Yeah. I think there's also something to be said about, so another kind of like cool quote or fact or like thinking point, Khan Academy, Khan released this video where he was talking about, like in the 1800s or something, maybe prior to that, people thought that like the ability to gain literacy for just like being able to read books was like this impossible feat. And, now we look and we have like, 90% plus, like literacy rates everywhere. So similar things I think can be said about coding, like, just the ability and like the structure to be able to learn stuff, like make something that previously seemed impossible, like very possible. If you just change your mindset that it's like, oh, this is something that like, kindergartners are going to be able to do, like that.
Expectation.
Yeah, the expectation for that kind of stuff.
That's actually a good transition to this.
But I had another question.
Oh, you got
this
one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just wanted to back up because like I've been reading a lot of stuff and I don't know, the whole Uber scandal. I don't know if like you guys know about this, but basically like there have been a number of counts coming out from Uber from women who've been working in Uber that like there's rampant sexism there that is like in the core, like they go to HR and nothing happens and they're told that like nobody else has reported this guy and that he's a high performer, so like we can't do anything about that. So I think there really is something to be said about again, we're kind of being picky and like because a lot of the women that happened to were obviously like incredibly talented women, and being in an environment like that really broke them down. Like I read something that was like this
well, you can imagine. You're being dehumanized.
Yes.
Daily. Probably.
So yeah, and I mean like, but so one of the things, like I don't know the different forces in your life that are talking to you, but like I've had friends who have had families that were less supportive of them, like going into a technical field. So I think like we're all here to say like there is a space for you where you will get the recognition, or like you will get the support and like all that sort of stuff like you need, you deserve. And if you're not there, like I think it's probably better to take yourself out of those sort of toxic environments and to really be assessing like, I don't know, it's really hard, but it's like if you find yourself in one of those situations, 90% it's probably not you. It's like the environment. I think it's like hard to necessarily assess that like while you're in the midst of it. But
and I think to go back to about sort of getting equality in the workplace, you can also find a lot of data online about pay. If you're talking about pay, money, about like Glassdoor, other resources online about what the average Android developer makes based on your skills. Again, because a lot of you are going to be new developers or new to the job, so you'll have less leverage, but it's always worth it to ask. And because by the time you get an offer, the company's already invested some time and effort, and they want you to join them. Otherwise, they need to like go find somebody else and rehire and whatever. So you do have a little bit of leverage even as a junior new hire. Yeah, so I think just use as much information out there as possible to support your case. Okay, so the last prepared question before we go on to asking anything is, and Lyla actually touched on this in her response. So, okay, Jessica, I'll throw this one to you. How do you feel you're doing well on coding if you're new at this and aren't so confident about the best quality of your code? This is from Sylvia Turek in Poland. So how do you, basically it's kind of like a vicious cycle. How do you feel you're doing well in coding if you're new at it and aren't even that confident about the quality of your code to begin with?
Ooh, that's a good question.
All been there.
I know. I would say if you've gotten to the point where you hit compile and you see a result and something happened, then you're making progress. As long as you're making progress, yeah, I know it can feel incrementally, or so a lot of growth is very incremental, and sometimes when you're in it, it's hard for you to see your own growth. And maybe feels, for example, if you're in it for a month and then you feel like you haven't made much progress, but then someone from the outside comes and sees what you've done within that month, it's actually like pretty exponential. How much you've learned, how much you've progressed within that time. So I would say, yeah, try to connect with people, whether it's virtually, if you're in a place that you don't have a physical hangout to get together with, and then just like try to have a goal. So like set that goal, whether like maybe break it down, have like a small goal, but just have like a weekly goal check-in for yourself, and just to see, just so that you make progress. Have that big goal, like what Jenny was saying, like have that, if you have that career goal in mind, like pictures where you see yourself. Actually, I kind of did something similar for myself. Like I had this a dream in mind, and I wrote it down on a card, and every day I would wake up in the morning and read it to myself, and just like have that mindset. So like everything that you do, you breathe, you eat, like drives you towards that. And if we do get off track, it's okay. Like we're all human, and just to have that force to bring you back, and then also have an accountability, someone to keep you accountable, whether it's friends or family, whether it's like physically in person or virtually,
or a bot,
or like other students, just to like make it public out there. Because once you make it public, it's like you hold yourself accountable to this larger vision that you've set for yourself. And kind of what you guys were talking about before of, there's this quote, I can't exactly rephrase it, but the idea that when I recognize that the world I live in is like these roles are constructed by people who know more than I do about the world, it was really freeing of like, there's so many opportunities, and not to be shackled by like these thoughts that other people might have that would bring you down. Like, why let that bother you? There are always other routes in mind to get, and we have those other routes that we can take, and just to be open to those opportunities, like to take a breather and like see what is available.
This is sort of a tangent, but always choose the best story for yourself. So if you're in a situation and it's like you're not getting the job interview, and the stories you can choose from are I suck at this, I'll never succeed, or I need to build another app, and I need to work harder, and I'm going to get this job. In the end, pick the second one. Don't pick the one where you're like sad and crying. Pick the one where you feel like I can do something, and here's my next steps. And to Jessica's point, like when I was running the program, I was like terrible. I was really, I did all the like newbie mistakes about, like I had like loops inside of loops inside of loops. There's this reference called W3 Schools, which is like a reference for JavaScript, and all the like elite coders on Stack Overflow and wherever, and say that they like all make fun of this resource, but it always comes up at the top of the Google. So they have like really good SEO or something, and they all make fun of it for being like too dumbed down or basic. But that's like what I always used starting, and I really didn't care. And I just had to tell myself like, you'll get to the point where you can see the flaws and the weaknesses of this resource later. But the whole point is I need to make my code compile. So just start with that, and then you'll slowly through that gain confidence to know like, oh, actually, a for loop, a nested for loop isn't the best option here. Maybe I should try something else. But it's like completely not realistic to think you're gonna like not only learn this super hard thing you've never learned before, but also do it like best in class. And if you have that kind of burden on you, it's going to be impossible to get where you want to go. So just take it one step at a time. And when your thing compiles, it's like have a party for yourself, and then later on come back, a year later, and you'll be like, oh wow, that was a mess.
Yeah.
But you'll get there.
Yeah, celebrate like every small success or failure. Like
Totally.
it's to get to that any point you're gonna hit all those good and bad points, and like you hit the bad points, like awesome, I hit that, and now I'm moving on to the next one.
Right.
Totally. So
I can say maybe 2 things on that.
Okay.
Personally, for me, I think that the moments when I felt most confident or just feel most good about things are when I'm teaching people, which is like partially why I'm here right now. But being able to like get to a point where I don't know, if you're having conversations with people, and even if it's something that's not technical, you kind of explain what you're doing. I think that like feels very rewarding. And then in line with that, just like working on little things where I like whatever coding project I was working on, like felt like it was helping somebody. Like when I was hitting those points, like that kind of motivated me, I guess, externally. So I like try to choose stuff that was related to that.
Okay, well, we're only 1 minute late. So this is good. Our first question, live question from Valentino Dix, who says, I know you made the course, so probably you'll say yes, but do you think we should feel confident how much looking for an Android job after the end of the course, referring to the Android Fast Track program? Are we really ready? So to be honest, the Android Fast Track at the certification at the end isn't us saying you're ready, it's Google. So Google came to us with this idea. This product actually isn't a Udacity grown, like the content in it is shared with the Android and degree and other free courses we have on our site. But Google was the one who determined like what amount of stuff belongs in that program, and then would prepare you to pass a certification exam to be ready at, I think, the junior level Android developer. So I'm going to say yes because Google said so, and they are the ones that tend to hire Android developers. I believe it would. I think that, of course, it really depends on how much you put into it, and sort of the number of the quality of the apps that you're building. Are you doing side projects? Are you sort of engaged in the community in other ways outside of just the core curriculum?
Yeah.
More to add to that.
I mean, I think that you never want to get into the mentality of like, I finished this, therefore I'm done, and like I deserve a job now or something. Like I have the certificate, like whatever. Because you will be competing against people that like are making apps and stuff in their free time. So I think that like yes, that's going to contain a lot of the knowledge that you need to go and be an Android developer, but there's an aspect of like practicing and getting really comfortable with the framework and stuff, which you will get some of if you are, putting your all into projects and, maybe even doing a little bit of extra work. Like if it's a joy to make, the Popular Movies app, for example, like you might put a little bit more time in it. That's great. Yeah, so I would say like, yes, it'll have all the knowledge, but you need to fill in kind of like you still need to hustle.
Yeah, same?
Yeah, same.
Okay, so another sort of tricky question is,
Noise phone.
oh, my phone fell. Oh, well, it's fine. Oh my gosh, his name. Zuzana Benny. I'm very interested in coding for Android Wear. In your opinion, how much potential is there in these gadgets, and is it worth the time to get into that? So I have an opinion. Well, I have a fact and an opinion. One fact is that we've deprecated the Android Wear course on our site because Google told us it's no longer up to date. So we don't actually have anything up to date for you. So that's one fact. But my opinion is this: if you really want to develop for a technology and it motivates you, then just sort of learn with that in mind and use that to keep driving you. I definitely think there is probably a market for wearables in the future ongoing. I don't know enough, honestly, about Android Wear as a tech product or as a platform to say whether or not what the market is for that particular tech. But if your vision is programming like a beautiful wearable interface that does super cool, crazy things, don't give that up because like I'm telling you, we deprecated the course.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just like trying to think because like this isn't something that I've like thoroughly studied, but like looking through job applications, like it's definitely not on every single one. So this is not like a box that you need to check off to like be an Android dev. But if your goal is to go be part of like a fitness startup or something, then like yeah, you probably want to pick up those skills.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And there definitely are like job apps out there that I've seen that it's like either required or like extra bonus points. Like, we're looking for somebody that has experience with those.
And I don't think wearables are going to be going away necessarily.
I think like Internet of Things, like all of that stuff is gonna be exploding. So the more you know about how to code for different devices that aren't just like a straight phone, like that's just gonna add to your repertoire and like sort of
make it more desirable than it can be. Question 3 from Victoria Pagliati. Do you think there are opportunities for freelancers in Android development?
Yes, but I haven't worked this one, so I think that like, do you know the backgrounds of the guys that work on the Android app at Udacity and whether they like?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't actually know, but I think for sure, if by freelance you mean the ability to kind of like choose your own gigs, set your own hours, then yes. So I know there are agencies that hire developers and for the sole purpose of freelancing them.
I think it has some students as well for like I would say smaller companies, maybe like more startup, closer to
early
stage companies would be looking for a freelance opportunity. There'd be more freelance opportunities with those.
Yeah. The way that I see it is that like a lot of companies, in the same way that like a lot of companies we need web pages, like a lot of companies decide that they want to have a mobile app associated with what they're doing. So like in the same way that there's this big ecosystem around people that like freelance as web developers, like
that's true.
there are freelance Android folks out there. Not having like freelance Android apps, I can't speak to the relative ease of like using that as an in route versus like going off and working at a company. But I do think like, as a freelancer, you get all the benefits of like, flexibility with time and like all that kind of stuff. But then like you have to figure out your own healthcare, at least in the States. Or like, there's this other aspect of it of really having, I think there is like a particular personality where you have to be good with kind of ambiguity and really hustle for yourself and like network and that kind of stuff. That's like an extra skill set that you need to be successful as a freelancer.
I think that there's certainly a market there. People
Thank you for the compliments on my haircut.
She does. It's like fire. She works on Firebase too.
Yeah, I know. This is all just for Firebase. So just a big
very dedicated.
Question 4 from Dennis G. Dennis G is when would you use external databases combined with apps, and what kind of language would you use for this? As which would you recommend to learn combining Android apps with databases? Or which languages?
The first thing that comes to mind is SQL.
Yeah, I mean SQL is baked in. So, and I don't have a huge amount of experience of like doing something besides like the default SQLite database out there, and that seems to be what like a lot of people out there say. Yeah, I mean, I think it might kind of get into the realm of like depending on where you go off and work, they might have some like like a lot of companies will just have their own way of doing things, so you might need to be accustomed with something. But I really don't think like I've seen stuff about there about needing to know some like particular other technology. Certainly knowing how to like access the internet and be able to get data from a database that's out there that like backend developers are doing for your web app that's communicating with your Android phone, like that's sort of important. And if you're interested in learning more about data stuff, there's a bunch of Firebase courses out there that Jessica and I have been involved in, which is kind of like a I would say it's like a quick and lightweight way to get started with a kind of like backend server for you, and it's like a pretty, again, like sort of fast, easy, and powerful thing that you can do.
And even at the Android Basics, at the end of it, we have the database course that we work on. So there's some like very basic introduction to databases, like what you should be storing in there, like what types of data, versus things that you store directly on your phone. And then there's some links to external sites and resources that you can learn more about the language and just databases in general.
Oh, it looks like we got cut off. But are we still recording? Okay. Yes. I'm sorry, internet troubles.
You can pick a question.
We can pick a question in the document.
I highlighted some ones. The other thing was there was like a lot of we're not pushing. Sorry, technical issues, but we're gonna.
But this will still record.
So if we're just talking to nobody.
We're talking to the future. Okay. How about
this mentor? I kind of, yeah,
Oh,
I kind of like that
a
one.
mentor question? Let's ask this question. Answer this question from Evie Katsulieri. Athens. Did you have a mentor when starting engaging with coding? Do you believe that having a female mentor is more helpful than male mentors? And I'm thinking that female mentors in tech may already have the same experience with a young woman in tech and offer more to the point advice. Geez, if I have a mentor, I had like a bunch of mini mentors. Not that they were small people, but they are like my mentors in a small way. Like I have mentors who are really skilled. Sorry, I'm weird. Who are really skilled, like back-end engineers who I consulted with when I was trying to connect, you know, like a back-end tech with my front end. I had people who are like brilliant front-end JavaScript developers. I even like people who are extremely good in CSS. So I kind of picked and chose. I never once asked someone, will you be my mentor? I kind of personally don't like that because I feel like it sets up this construct that's sort of contrived. And instead, just always be curious and identify people who are knowledgeable and nice and ask them questions and listen. And kind of people generally like to help other people, especially developers, because we've all been new. Like no one's come out of the womb like a fully fledged, you know, Android developer or full stack developer or backend developer. And for women versus men, to be honest, it's a lot harder to find female engineering mentors. I don't know. I think I probably had one who I just kind of like shadowed because I really admired her. But for the most part, the people who I talked to about like career and technical expertise were either direct managers of mine who were good managers and almost always male, now that I'm thinking about it. And that's just kind of because of I think if I was more proactive about finding female technical mentors, I could have found more, but I was pretty happy with sort of the selection of people that I had. Mm-hmm. I don't know, what do you guys think? Are you women?
So, us women. I will say that, okay, so Google has this group called like Women Tech Makers, which I think like part of its existence is to connect women together. That's and great. Like, you know, maybe get you some mentors, you know, out of that. Mm-hmm. I will say that for me personally, like I had this period of time where I'm like, I haven't gotten a mentor. Like, does nobody think I'm a rising star or whatever? Like, oh, boo. And I did more explicitly like have some conversations with the person who's managing me at the time about like, you know, I don't know how this thing works. I just feel like I've like skipped out on this. And I guess Udacity people are such a great company that I did like have somebody suggested to me to like go on these like monthly so just like you know, half-hour-long chat breaks to talk about work and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a good experience, even though it was a little bit more like, you will mentor her now. Yeah, and I also know that Udacity is setting up a program to try to